Episode 4 of our 1881 series, What's on Tap, Beer for Good. Tonight, we have an incredible lineup creating our panel that is going to speak to the efforts being conducted by breweries around the world to become active and contributing members of their local communities. As you all are aware, now, if not prior to, the world has certainly shifted in many ways over the last year, and areas tied to social justice have now come to the forefront of our conversation. As one of our primary areas of discussion tonight and our backdrop for the larger concept tonight of corporate social responsibility, we're going to be exploring the Black is Beautiful craft beer initiative, thanks to one of our panelists, Marcus Baskerville, founder and brewer of Weathered Souls Brewing in San Antonio, Texas. We are honored to have Marcus joining us tonight, as he's not only been named as HopCulture.com's one of the 5 most influential voices in beer today for the year 2020, as well as representing the #1 best craft brewery in the country outlined by HopCulture.com. Huge thanks to Marcus for joining us for this event tonight. He's been on a tour of podcasts, webinars, TV interviews, you name it, talking about this incredible initiative that now spans 22 countries and more than 1,200 breweries. And believe it or not, 16 right here in Connecticut. And if you're counting, 7 have a UConn alumni owned or operated component to them. So cheers to all of our Huskies out there. Also rounding out our panel today, we are proud to also represent 2 of these UConn alumni owned breweries that are participating in this endeavor. They are here with us tonight to speak on this and other areas of local community engagement and investment that their breweries are now working on and are vital and crucially important for the success of their business and industries. If you can just join me in welcoming these Huskies to the panel. We have co-owner Laura Amenta of Still Hill Brewery in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. We also have Adam DeLaura, head brewer and co-founder and owner of Labyrinth Brewing in Manchester, Connecticut. And also joining us from Still Hill Brewery is head brewer and co-owner Scott Barbanel. Moderating this discussion tonight, an exploration of corporate social responsibility, we're thrilled and honored to also have UConn School of Business faculty and Settel Fellow, Stephen Park, I apologize. He's the Associate Professor I mentioned of Business Law, as well as the Settel Fellow in Corporate Social Responsibility. And before we jump in, just a couple of quick housekeeping items, as we usually do. First, the chat is going to be open this evening, and as is customary, and as we found with all of these conversations, feel free to jump in there and talk about all the different beers you're drinking. But more importantly, as this conversation is tied to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we want to make sure and reiterate that this is a safe space and a respectful place. So we're asking you to please be aware and understanding of your fellow participants amid their own personal journeys in learning about race, ethnicity, and identity, and where they are or even where you may be in your own learning and development surrounding this area. So please just be cautious as you do that. As we all know, it's a never-ending learning process, and we need to respect everyone out there, and everyone has differing opinions and different feelings, so please make sure that you understand that as it relates to everyone's journeys in that area tonight. Next, as we've learned from these conversations, as I alluded to, the best place to connect with other Huskies right now is going to be in that chat area. We normally have people logging in from all across the globe, so feel free to jump in there, let us know where you're coming from, what you're drinking tonight, what your favorite breweries are, if you want to share your Untapped handle, feel free to throw that in there and make some new friends while you're drinking tonight. And I'll get you started right now. As you can see right here, I too will be having a beer tonight. I'm going to be drinking one of our very own alumni brewed Black is Beautiful from our lovely Rocky Hill Brewery, Still Hill Brewing. And I believe Scott and Laura will be joining me as well this evening with theirs. And I know Marcus already has one. He's showing us that one on screen already. So feel free to jump in there, what you guys are drinking tonight and where you all are coming from. We'd love to hear from you. So get that started by jumping in there. Next, if you have questions tonight, our panelists are willing to answer those, so feel free to drop those into the Q&A function. We will be monitoring those throughout the evening and filtering out to the panelists as we go. So keep those questions coming and make sure that they go in there. And lastly, I'm joined by my colleague, Kristen Luger, who's going to be managing all of our technical aspects and any questions you may have. So feel free to drop those in there, and Kristen will be helping you out along the way. Now, jumping right into this, I'm thrilled to welcome our moderator tonight, Professor Stephen Park from the UConn School of Business. Professor, thank you so much for joining us for this incredible discussion and for sharing your expertise in the area of corporate social responsibility. But not only that, and your newly crafted expertise in the craft beer world. I hope you're up for that challenge, because knowing the hopheads we have in UConn Nation, I'm pretty sure they're going to ask some pointing questions your way about beer. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. First of all, thank you, Josh, for organizing the 1881 series and inviting me to moderate this really fabulous event. So I have a deep appreciation for corporate social responsibility and sustainability, in business and a great and certainly growing appreciation for the quality and diversity of Connecticut craft beers. It's really, truly a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about the convergence of these two. What I've come to appreciate as a business professor is that every business has a unique story to tell. There really is a lot that one can learn about how to make a business work by hearing the firsthand experiences of those who've done so. And I think that's all the more true for CSR. Tonight, we have the privilege to host 4 socially conscious and successful entrepreneurs in the craft beer industry who are doing well by doing good. Let me now let each of our guest speakers introduce themselves briefly and their companies. So I've asked each of them to just get us started by telling us what they do and how they got into the craft beer industry in the first place. First, we'll start with Marcus Baskerville, as you know, creator of the Black is Beautiful initiative and also owner and founder of Weathered Souls, who is joining us from all the way in San Antonio. Marcus, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Stephen. I think Josh probably already did a wonderful job. But my name is Marcus Baskerville. I'm the head brewer, co-owner, co-founder of Weathered Souls Brewing Company here in San Antonio, Texas. What got me into craft beer actually was a little bit of camaraderie between my brother, older brother, he's about 7 years older than me, and one of my other older relatives who started drinking beer first. And around the age when I got around 21, 22 is about when I started drinking craft beer. And so that's actually what kind of brought me and my brothers, outside of being brothers, our actual friendship together. We actually brewed our first beers together out of a kind of a competition thing, and it expanded from there. So here I am.
Thanks, Marcus. Scott Barbanel is co-owner and head brewer of Still Hill Brewing in Rocky Hill. Scott, can you tell us a bit about how you got into all this?
Hi, all. Once again, which is very common these days, I got into it through home brewing. My brother-in-law introduced me to home brewing, and I fell in love with it. Whether it's designing a recipe, tinkering around with equipment, coming up with new equipment, fell in love, developed a passion for making beer, designing beers, and some of my friends and families started to like what I came up with and started saying, start a brewery. And I told them they were all crazy, but eventually their persistence kind of sunk in, and I decided to go for it and start a brewery. So it's driven by a love of beer, a love of the history of beer, a love of the culture of beer. There's a tremendous camaraderie between breweries. We're competitors, but we're also in this all together. We like what we're doing and how we're doing it. So that's what got me into this passion.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Scott. So as Josh noted, we're joined by 2 members of the Husky Nation, 2 alumni of the University of Connecticut. The first is a colleague of Scott's at Still Hill, co-owner Laura Menta. I believe you're on mute, Laura.
Thank you for the reminder. Hello, everyone. First, a shout out to all my fellow alumni, and thank you to Stefan and Josh for having me be a part of this panel. So my career has spanned corporate, public, and not-for-profit sectors. Early on, I was actually an IT consultant for large multinationals living in like 5 different cities. And then I did a complete career shift. And for the past 20 years, I've been involved in government and nonprofit world, extensively in child abuse prevention. And as much as I am passionate about preventing child abuse and neglect, it's an emotionally difficult field. So Still Hill is like my counterbalance. It's the fun thing to be a part of. And after I tasted Scott's homebrew, I realized that beer has changed a lot from what my father was drinking. And I joined a chorus of friends and acquaintances that urged Scott to pursue his dream. And then I decided to put my money behind Scott. So I'm today proud to say I'm an equity owner of Still Hill Brewing, and I'm equally proud of what Scott and our my small microbrewery has achieved in 5 years.
Thank you, Laura. Our second UConn alum is Adam DeLaura, owner and founder of Labyrinth Brewing in Manchester, Connecticut. Adam?
Yeah, hey, I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And yeah, so, I joined the brewing community much like Scott did, starting as a home brewer. Myself and a couple people that I had gone to high school with in our adult years started home brewing, and it was kind of like a reconnection with people who I hadn't seen for a while. And one thing led to another. You start brewing, people start telling you, oh, you should make a brewery. And at the time I was a librarian. I was like, nah, I don't think I want to do that. But eventually we got to a point where we realized, we're old enough and we have the right experience where we could probably make this work, but we're also young enough that just in case this doesn't work, we probably have enough time to sort of recover financially from this. So myself and my two business partners, we pretty much put everything in, all the chips are in. I mean, I even sold my toaster oven from my basement to raise money for this, and we're in, so, and, we've been going for about 2.5 years now. So it's been a heck of a ride.
Great, thank you, Adam. So as you all know, the topic of today's event is beer for good. And I thought before turning the floor over to our speakers that I would take a few minutes to try to put into context what the event title actually means. And really that gets down to the questions of what is CSR and how and why do companies engage in it? And I think that the stories we'll hear tonight will amply add to our understanding. The first observation that I would share is that, of course, as we all know, and as Josh noted at the top of the event, that today we're living in a moment of truly daunting social challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic has been deadly for far too many and costly in different ways to all of us. Poverty and economic inequality have increased. Last summer's protests for racial equality raised awareness of the costs of systemic racism and broadened demand for social justice reform and inclusiveness of historically marginalized communities. And all of this while the specter of climate change and the problems revealed by the Me Too movement persist. And this is really just like a very short summary or list of a wide range of social challenges that we're all aware of and have encountered in one way or another in our own lives. And there are many more challenges that communities in Connecticut and all over the country are grappling with today and will be grappling with for the foreseeable future. One important question that keeps coming up and is of particular interest to me is the role and responsibilities of business to address these problems and help create solutions. So back in 2018, some of you in the audience may have seen the Business Roundtable's statement by the CEOs of America's largest corporations, which declared in succinct terms that the purpose of the corporation is to serve society. And that really is just a tip of the iceberg, right? CSR revolves around the concept of a company's relationships with its stakeholders, its customers, its employees, and other groups in the communities in which they operate. And all businesses have to address these stakeholder relationships in one way or another. So the world of CSR actually consists of a broad variety of different forms. It may be a company supporting charitable giving by its employees or engaging in philanthropic activities itself. It may involve various programs implemented by companies to address social goals in order to improve their business, such as programs to improve employee retention and satisfaction, invest in sustainable production, packaging, and delivery, and building consumer loyalty to a brand that they believe in. Or CSR, as I think is evident in the examples we'll hear tonight, may involve creating a new business that is defined by social responsibility, such as a benefit corporation or a green product or service. Alongside what companies are doing to pursue social responsibility and social justice, we see a complementary trend of ethical consumerism, which I think all of us can share, with really two features. One, there's a greater desire supported by surveys to express oneself through what you buy, eat, and wear, and how you travel, and so on and so forth. And two, there's a yearning for personalized experiences. We want to ensure that that our experience as a customer or a consumer is personal to ourselves. And in that way, Beer for Good is a business that very much reflects that model. Craft brewing, as I've learned through my conversations with our speakers and my own research, is a community and represents a social fabric composed of the relationships that brewers, such as the ones we have here tonight, try to build and foster with not only their customers' palates, right, but also their values and expectations. These notions of experience, community, and relationships are ones that permeate conversations regarding social justice and social responsibility. And in a lot of ways are particularly fitting for the very personalized nature of the craft beer industry. So I'm a relative novice compared to our speakers on craft brewing. And so my first question for all of you, Adams, Laura, Marcus, is this, and let's start with Adam. What, Adam, drives you to pursue social goals through your business? And how do you seek to realize those goals? What have you done at Labyrinth to identify and implement your vision of social responsibility and justice?
All right. You know, what drives us mainly is that it's the right thing to do. Now, I know that sounds, that sounds like some cliche business thing, you put out there, but it really is. My business partners and I, we grew up in the town where our business is located. And so when we were kicking this idea around, we wanted to make sure that if we were going to build a business, there was going to be some component to it that basically gives back to the community that raised us. The three of us, we all had a variety of help from family and community organizations growing up. And so this is our platform to give back, right? And so that kind of idea flows through everything. And whether that's, our charitable stuff, brewing the Black is Beautiful beer and giving money, or having a charity event or supporting those, but that also is things like any of our sustainability practices, like being mindful of how much water we're using, recapturing water, making sure that we're not unnecessarily creating waste, and recycling any of our organic waste products, and and even running a humane organization, right? And I mean, treating and paying employees appropriately, and basically just treating them like the valuable human beings that they are, because they're members of our community as well, right? And so we try to realize this in almost anything we do. Anytime we have a new initiative, or we're trying to do something new, there's always that idea like, okay, well, how does this make the community better? It's great that we have this new beer. How does this make the community better? Do we have, how do we tie that in so that sales of this beer or foot traffic into our tap room, how can that benefit some other organization? And maybe that's something really small, like a food drive. Come on in, drop off food, get $1 off your beer. It doesn't have to be this momentous, like humongous production, but there's always some aspect of that. And I think that comes from us as consumers. We're looking for places that are doing those types of things. We're spending our dollars there. And so we're kind of hoping that people who are conscious of that will spend their dollars with us.
Thanks, Adam. Laura, how about Still Hill? How is Still Hill pursuing social goals? And how do you seek to actually realize those goals?
So at Still Hill, we want to be disruptors for good. We're following social entrepreneurs across the globe that are building social impact right into their business model. For Still Hill, that means that we're committed to sustainability, to giving back, and to changing the culture around beer. So Still Hill is working towards being good stewards of the land and our planet. 100% of our spent grain is donated back to farmers to feed the livestock, which means that we don't have to pay to dispose of that, nor does it end up taking space in the landfill. We recycle everything we can, including the containers that the grain comes in. And we're a firm believer in minimizing potable water consumption. So we have a system where the water used to cool the tanks is reused back during either the processing or the cleaning cycle. Beyond sustainability, Still Hill, for us, good corporate stewardship is also about creating a sense of community. We're not a huge corporation, we're a micro business. And it's really because of our community and our customer base that we're here at all. And so we're thankful for this. And we've always tried to give back to the local community. We've done a ton of fundraisers at the brewery. Just some examples, we've done some for animal welfare, protection agencies like the Protectors of Animals and One More Dog Rescue. We've supported first responders. We've had fundraisers to support a host of youth sports and education programs in both Rocky Hill and Cromwell, and I could go on. Creating a sense of community and being socially responsible, though, has broader meaning at Still Hill. We have a goal to change the culture around beer drinking. Our view is that beer is the drink that's been made by the people for the people. And so when you think about that, we in the brewery business want everybody to share in the love of beer. And so we want everyone to feel welcome, right? And this means to us that sexism, racism, and homophobia are not welcome at a beer drinker's world. But changing the culture around beer is tough. You know, just take, for example, sexism in beer. It's a small but regrettable part of the beer world, but it's also difficult to ignore when it like stares you in the face in the grocery store. You know, you look at the labels and it says panty peeler, leg spreader, naughty girl, double D. These are names of real beer that exist today. So to combat sexism, we support industry organizations like the Pink Boot Society, which offers support, education, and scholarship for women in the beer industry. In fact, a shout out to our tap manager, Abby Bibbins, who is co-president of the Connecticut chapter of Pink Boots. Still Hill also collaborates with other women-focused initiatives in the brewery. And in the end, what we're really trying to do is a culture change, is to create a culture of diversity, which is extremely important, but challenging even in the best of times. You know, I think a lot of breweries have good intention, but we surround ourselves by people who look and like us and are like us. And so we don't necessarily think out of the bubble because we're not facing folks that are diverse. And so at Still Hill, we've been looking for ways to make changes even within our business. And one solution has involved hiring and diversifying our staff. I'm proud to say that our hiring practices, we have had representative of all races and at least 50% of our staff is female. So Still Hill, our commitment is to sustainability, giving back, and changing the culture. But one last thing I'll say is holding breweries accountable is critical, but so is lifting up and celebrating the people and organizations that are actively working to diversify our world. So I'm for one, thrilled to be here with Marcus. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Laura. Marcus, could you share with us a bit about what you're doing at Weathered Souls to pursue social goals through your brewery's business and your company's experience seeking and attempting to realize those goals?
Yeah, definitely. So for us, I mean, even before Black is Beautiful, we've always had an interest about diversity within our community. But also, we have a very strong passion when it comes to family. So something at Weathered Souls that we've always tried to do is treat our community like family. So we've done many things on many different spectrums as far as trying to support our community. We've done different drives for the children's hospitals within San Antonio. We've worked very closely with our local San Antonio Girls Pine Out chapter, dealing with looking at the level of diversity between craft beer. Obviously, there's not a lot of minorities, and then also there's a very strong lack of women. And the fact that I'm raising two daughters currently, I've found a real passion in trying to bring more women into the craft beer industry. So being said that, we've worked very closely with our local Girls Pine Out chapter, but then even then we've done other things related to diversity outside of the Black is Beautiful initiative, from supporting local chapters, organizations, and different things like that. We've gone ahead and hosted art events through the brewery before. We've done yoga in support of different local organizations and things of that such. So for us, it's always been about trying to create and treat our community like a family and provide support any way that we can. I mean, we'll go further into detail about Black is Beautiful, but even, peak pandemic time, our main focus was was donating back to our local community and the local beneficiary that we chose for that. So that's always been something that we've been passionate about here within our brewery in San Antonio.
Thanks, Marcus. So I hear in our speakers' remarks certain very powerful themes that they've articulated regarding consciousness and community and relationships and this notion of disruption, and also this notion of broadening the scope of what we all take for granted in a new way, and this idea that through your business, you can serve goals that you in your own personal lives hold dear, and that it requires a deep thinking about not only your values, but the ways in which you seek to implement those values in your everyday business practices. And I'd like to return to those themes and some of the challenges and experiences that you've encountered a bit later. But Marcus, hold on a sec. I want to, of course, take advantage of this opportunity to have you here tonight and ask you to share a bit more about Black is Beautiful. What is the story behind Black is Beautiful? It's received ample coverage in the craft brewing industry, as well as in the mainstream media, and it strikes me as both something powerful but simple. And as we saw from the beers that Josh and Scott had for them, it sends a message that we all can understand. Could you tell us a bit about the story behind Black is Beautiful and what you've learned through it?
Yeah, definitely, Stephen. So never in my life would I think that I would get into social justice work. But I think everybody ends up having a catalyst or a boiling point where they feel like they have to do something. So for me, this goes back to the last weekend of May. And I was on my way to Dallas to do a collaboration with another local brewery, well, not local, but Dallas brewery, Turning Point. And within that trip, I was listening to the Breakfast Club. On the Breakfast Club, they had Breonna Taylor's mom, and Breonna Taylor's mom was discussing what occurred to her finding out that her daughter was murdered. Within that conversation, it really struck me. I mean, it was a sad conversation to listen to, but then on the other end of the spectrum, being a Black man that has dealt with police brutality, that's dealt with, discrimination, raising two young daughters, you look at that situation and it's like that can happen to you, your friends, can happen to your daughters, or with anything of that nature. Listening to that conversation literally brought tears to my eyes. On the way back from Dallas, I was listening to a lot of the different protests that were going on. So mind you, in May, we're at peak COVID as far as what's going on dealing with the pandemic. And so for me, I wasn't going to go out to a protest to show my disdain for the current situations that were happening with police brutality. So over the course of that weekend, it weighed very heavily on me, and I had to figure out how to give back, how to do something. So that's when I started toying around with the Black is Beautiful idea. And so originally, um, over the course of that weekend, I was also having a conversation with Jeffrey Stuffings of Jester King Brewery out in Dripping Springs, and we were talking about race, Trump, family, different things of that sort. And so it just lingered with me over that course of that night. That was Friday night. So Saturday comes along, and I wake up, and I'm like, okay, like there has to be something that you can do. So that's when I started toying around with the Black is Beautiful idea. I contacted Kevin Dyer, the person that did our label out in Austin, and told him that basically I wanted to try to create a beer that we were going to give back locally into support of inclusion and diversity. And so he ended up sending me a mock-up label. So I sent that label to Jeff. So Jeff had responded, oh, you know, that's a wonderful idea. And I would understand if you don't want to, but you should turn this into a collaboration. And I said, you know what, Jeff, that is a wonderful idea. So now this brings us to Sunday. It's a Sunday. I spent the entire day basically trying to come up with a mission statement. I mean, you look at where I am within Texas, right? I'm the only Black-owned brewery in Texas. I'm the only Black head brewer in the entire state of Texas. And the majority of our customer base is middle-aged, white, Caucasian male. So being said that, you're creating something called Black is Beautiful. How can I create this, tread lightly, but also garner the support of the people that support us currently with the beer that we produce? So I toyed around with the mission statement a little bit, sent it off to some other friends in the craft beer industry, sent it off to my brothers, some other relatives. Over the course of that night, I didn't get any sleep. I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I ended up writing out the entire website front to back. So the mission statement, the recipe, what we were asking of other breweries. I got the logo finalized, and we had our monthly meeting at 11 a.m. that morning. I had everything printed at 10:58. And at the start of the meeting, I presented it to my business partner and my sales manager and was like, this is how I'm feeling, and this is what we're going to do. So later that day, we ended up posting a video basically teasing the Black is Beautiful initiative and saying that we were going to announce more about it the next day. So originally, I told my business partner that within it, you know, maybe we would get 200, 250 people to involve themselves. And right off the gate, I think within the first 24 hours, we had already transcended past 300 breweries. And so what the Black is Beautiful initiative is for those that are unfamiliar, is it was a call to breweries within the United States originally. I mean, it's obviously transcended past to multiple countries. We're sitting at 23 countries currently, but originally it was a call to breweries within the United States to produce a recipe that we created here on a stout, and using 100% of those proceeds from that stout to donate to organizations that support police brutality reform, equality, and inclusion. So from there, we've had so far over 1,200 breweries, 23 countries, all 50 states, and it's even transcended past beer. We're looking at distilleries that are involving themselves at this point, wineries, coffee roasters, different things within that unit as well. It's been an amazing ride so far, seeing the amount of actual purpose that is given. We've received numerous of emails, numerous letters in the mail of different organizations that have been able to utilize those funds for their purposes of dealing with organizations that they've had. So as of recently, I just got awarded from the Exonerator Award from the California Innocence Project, where multiple breweries had used them as their beneficiary and gave back money. And what they do is work on releasing people out of the justice system that have been wrongly accused and different things of those such. Or we've been contacted by Humanize My Hoodie, which was a brand that was created by a professor for a college that was basically mistreated by the police, and he now has a brand to where, you know, wearing a hoodie shouldn't be an issue, right? It shouldn't be a concern, a cause for alarm within that realm. So being said that, it's definitely garnered and grown. We're looking at a place right now where we're starting a partnership with Walmart with 8 other breweries, where we'll be actually releasing Black is Beautiful nationwide for Black History Month. And that will be in over 500 locations within Walmart, where you'll be able to go ahead and purchase the beer and support local Black businesses and local Black owned breweries, local Black owned other businesses that will be paired with the beer as well. So we look at just the impact that is made over the course of, let's see, it's been a little over 7 months now. So to see the impact that is garnered over the last 7 months, I mean, we don't even have a total of the economic impact. We've sent out a survey recently asking people to let us know how much they've donated, who they've donated to, and different things of that line. And within 300 responses, we're well over $1 million. So to see 1,200 breweries involved within themselves and to finally get those numbers, we can actually see the economic impact that this actual initiative has made as well, outside of just the social impact. And for us, just like, for instance, our beneficiary was the 100 Black men in San Antonio. And that really resonated with me in the sense that I grew up kind of privileged in the sense where, you know, my parents made sure we were well taken care of. So being said that, I was also in a organization that basically cut young Black males out of trouble. On weekends you would go, they would do tutoring, you know, you would have basketball games, that different type of stuff to kind of keep you out of the neighborhood and keep you out of trouble. So there's a local chapter, kind of sort of the same thing within the 100 Black men of San Antonio. And what they do is young mentorship to young Black males within school, and then even those that have gone out of juvie and stuff like that, to start leading them into the correct direction, helping them to get into the right programs in school, helping them even beyond, you know, high school and stuff like that, to get into college programs and different things like that, to help them become pillars of the community. So that was something that definitely resonated with me as far as wanting to give back and wanting to do more within our local community as well. Originally, we had set our beneficiary as the Know Your Rights camp. But one of the main things that I wanted to do with the Black is Beautiful initiative was drive these breweries to start building relationships with their local community. You look at breweries and a lot of different things of how it's been over the years, and it's always that common term that Black people don't drink beer, right? But we know that a lot of people do, Black people do drink beer, a lot of minorities drink beer, and there's obviously a gap between that and our actual craft beer realm. I mean, we have 8,500 different breweries within the United States, and there's less than 70 that are Black owned. So you look at those statistics and those numbers, and there's obviously a gap. So being said that, one of the things that Black is Beautiful does is now drives these breweries to their local communities that they would normally not have relationships with, and it helps them guide and start building those relationships for future endeavors and future things, because now you're able to work with that local community of minorities, that local community of other people of color that you might not normally have known was even close to your brewery or within that realm. So I think that was kind of one of the most important aspects of the whole Black is Beautiful initiative when it came to the actual craft beer industry. But outside of that, it was wanting to give back to those local communities and wanting to kind of bridge that gap that we've had for so many years.
Thank you, Marcus. I'm happy to report that Connecticut is one of the states with breweries that have signed on to the Black is Beautiful initiative. And want to give Scott and Adam a chance to tell us why your brewery signed up for the Black is Beautiful initiative and what your experience has been as a signatory. Scott?
Hi, Marcus. Once again, thank you. Your leadership in this has been invaluable, and we all appreciate that. I got involved, or I got our brewery involved, because what happened last spring was a wake-up call. I'll admit, I sat there when I heard Black Lives Matter prior to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. I was like, all lives matter. And personally, I didn't quite understand what Black Lives Matter was about until it really hit me over the head. All lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. We really need to get a societal change. And as a brewery, Still Hill is apolitical. We host fundraisers for Republicans. We host fundraisers for Democrats. It doesn't want to, the brewery can't be political. It's got to stay apolitical. And I had always thought this was a political issue. And then I woke up and realized it's not political. This is a social issue. So how can I get involved? And you have to walk a fine line a lot of times. Marcus, he pointed out a lot of his customers are middle-aged white guys. And some of these don't like to be hit over the head with social issues and trying to put forward social issues to make change. Marcus gave us a great solution here. Come out with a beer. It's Black Lives Matter. We donate in our case, it's net proceeds. I wish we weren't in the middle of COVID and we could, funds were flowing easier for the brewery and we could donate all of the proceeds, but we donate the net proceeds to the Juvenile Justice League here in Connecticut, which is very much, it's not quite the same as the 100 man movement that Marcus is donating to, but they're trying to take minority kids that have gone into the justice system or are headed that way and get them pulled out if, so the punishment fits the crime for them and not put them down a path that perpetuates or creates a trail that's going to lead them down into a life of crime or a life on the edge, but tries to bring them back, mentor them, and put them onto a path for success. So it's just, I had the wake-up call. Marcus gave me an avenue and we had to jump on it. And it has been received very well. We have gotten some emails, I will admit. There are some people out there, and we all know it, they're closed-minded, and we've lost customers over this, but we've also gained customers over this. And I would rather lose the customers that can't get their heads around this issue and bring in the people that care about the issue. So for me, it was a personal wake-up call, and I'm hoping the Black Lives Matter or the Black is Beautiful initiative helps support and helps teach people that we are all Americans, we are all humans, and we have to look at each other that way. We have to be one nation, one people, and that's what this initiative means to me, and that's why we got involved. I know I rambled there, sorry.
Thanks, Scott. Adam, what has been your experience with the Black is Beautiful initiative, and what have you learned?
What have we learned from this? We've learned that, it doesn't really take a lot of effort for a business to make a huge impact in their local community. So shortly, immediately after the George Floyd murder, a small group of people in my town, they formed an anti-racist organization, and they were committed to standing on the corner of Main and Center Street, right smack dab in town, and they're going to protest every day just to kind of raise awareness of this. And so, I found myself, my business partners, we're there at these rallies supporting these people, and then we got word of the Black is Beautiful beer. And it's kind of like, that whole idea of, from each according to their ability to each according to their need kind of thing. Like, I have the ability to make beer and I can stand out here with a sign all day long. What else can I do? Let's make beer. And through that, I have the ability to make beer, market beer, sell beer, position that product in the marketplace. We raised a ton of money and gave it to two organizations, one that's fighting for bail reform and another that this organization that had sprung up from the ground just out of nothing, this grassroots organization of, frankly, just some, some pissed off people of color who are tired of things not changing, and we're able to support them in their mission to, kind of like further educate people far more than I'm ever going to be able to go out there and educate. So, I guess the takeaway is that, like, honestly, it wasn't really that hard for us, make a beer, market beer, get the proceeds in the place it needs to go. It more was just a matter of kind of knowing who in the community can be a force multiplier for that, right? So, I mean, that's really what we learned, was basically focusing, if we're trying to, make a positive change in a certain aspect, find out which group, which organization, what people do we have to approach and say, hey, we have this cool idea, we want to help you guys out, And, we made those donations, and we've continued to support and those organizations. We've basically made relationships with completely new organizations that we might not have made prior to this initiative.
Thank you, Adam. One of the truly brilliant aspects of the Black is Blue initiative that comes across from Scott and Adam's remarks is that it empowers its partners, meaning that partners within the parameters of the Black is Beautiful initiative have the autonomy to decide for what causes they want to direct proceeds from the sale of the beer. And I think what that indicates is that there's a sense of values that is integrated into the strategies and operations of each business. You're driven by your own sort of personal sense of morality and right and wrong, but you have the power as partners of the Black is Beautiful initiative, as signatories, to decide what you want to support, consistent with not only your own values as owners, but also as a means to further your own business goals. I'd like to pivot for a moment and step back and try to situate this conversation in the world we live in today. So, as I noted at the top, a lot of the attention towards social responsibility and social justice has been driven by everything that's happened over the past year. But that's also these events and developments have also greatly complicated the business itself, right? And the 1881 series devoted a prior event to the effects of the pandemic on the craft brewing industry. And I'm just curious if any of you have encountered challenges or difficulties in pursuing your socially responsible initiatives as a result of the pandemic, or other difficulties or risks or uncertainties arising from the state of the industry as of today. Any thoughts on that?
Well, so I guess I can go.
Go ahead, Laura.
No,
go ahead, Marcus, and then Laura.
I was going to say, for us, it's actually been very refreshing in the sense that it's been very minimal as far as the overall obstacles that we've had to face getting Black is Beautiful off the ground and even supporting it over the last few months. We look at all of the different partners that we've received originally when we launched it, from Stout Collective, the Brewers Association, and many others. And so, originally I was a little worried about how things would kind of go over. But in that sense, I mean, it's been amazing as far as the responses go. And we've had very little kickback. I mean, you obviously have the few keyboard warriors that, send us messages or emails us. But outside of that, like I couldn't have one complaint about the way that the community, the brewers association, the brewing community, and our community has showed to support the Black is Beautiful initiative.
Marcus, Laura?
So, you know, with the pandemic, I mean, certainly it's a challenge to move forward with corporate social responsibility plans that, you know, are embedded in our business plan. You know, for example, we have great vision in terms of, you know, putting in capture tanks to recapture gray water or solar panels, but we have to survive in order to bring our visions to life. And so, you know, it's kind of funny. Independent breweries were Connecticut's strongest business success story, right? And but conversely, it's turned out to be one of the most challenging businesses to run in a pandemic. And I think Still Hill was really fortunate because we had already had canning in place, but we had to learn to pivot and adapt new strategies to provide beer to go and deal with local supply chains that are different. Still, much of our brewery's income relies on our tap room. So we continue to struggle in light of strong declines in consumer traffic. But I will say that Marcus's story of his success, you know, does teach us a lesson that maybe we don't need to be so large thinking. Maybe like the Dalai Lama. I don't know if you know his quote, but if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito.
Adam, Scott, any experiences you care to share about how you've tried to pursue social responsibility during the pandemic?
You know, it's certainly been a challenge, I'll say. You know, during the pandemic, my tap room was shut down. That's my bread and butter. So it's really hard to even make any donation when you actually don't have any money. You know, there was a good 8 to 10 weeks where the entire staff was laid off. Like, you know, so that was definitely a huge challenge. But for us, we basically just, you know, we still wanted to be able to give at the same level we gave last year. We looked at 2019's numbers and said, okay, how do we make this happen in 2021? We have less money, fewer events are happening, nobody can come to our tap room. It's almost madness and craziness, but you know, we were able to partner with new organizations or with new events from organizations that we had already partnered with. So there was, you know, one in particular, there's a domestic violence shelter out of Hartford that we have a really close relationship with. They usually have like a gala in May. It's like this huge grand ball, but obviously in May, nobody's gathering. So they did a virtual event. We helped support that and sponsor that, down to the point where the people who were like orchestrating the whole thing, their office lost internet connectivity because someone crashed into a telephone pole. So I let them bring their computers into my dining room and they ran the event from there. Now that's not a cash donation, but that certainly helped them run their event. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we just tried to be as creative as possible and, you know, face all these challenges when you don't know what's going on next week. Is the pandemic getting better? Is it getting worse? Are customers going to come out, spend money? How the heck do we do this? You know, and I'm, you know, proud to report that in 2020, we actually donated far more money than we did in 2019. I don't even know how that happened, you know, but we just kind of just kept going with it. And, you know, hopefully 2021's even better than that, you know?
Indeed, indeed. Well, one of the persistent challenges in pursuing social responsibility that I think will continue to set companies going forward is the possibility that your customers or prospective customers may be skeptical about your commitment to CSR. That they, you know, I think Scott and Adam have noted the reaction of some of their customers to Black is Beautiful, but there's also this notion that customers may not be willing to take at face value all of the socially responsible activities that you're doing. And I'm wondering if that's something that you've encountered at all, and if so, how you've tried to find ways to address them, to convince your customers that the social causes that you support on behalf of your employees, on behalf of your communities, in furtherance of your own values, are ones that are sincerely held and are strongly committed. Do you encounter that sort of skepticism at all? And if so, how do you address them?
We really haven't encountered that kind of skepticism. For the most part, our customers, the community are very supportive when we put something out there. Whether it's the Black is Beautiful now, I mentioned we did lose some customers, but I believe we've gained more than we've lost because people are starting to get it. We do an awful lot with animal causes, and the support that when you host a fundraising event for protectors of animals, people flock to it. Or when you host for events that support youth sports, whether it's travel basketball or soccer, or the booster club for local high school team. There's a lot of community support. They just need an outlet. And if you can provide the outlet, the support often comes. So it's, I haven't found skepticism. When we launch, one thing that did hit us, we were just about to launch our Pink Boots blend, our Pink Boots beer for 2020, literally 3 days after our tap room was shut down, and it was going to be a tap room beer. So that didn't go over well. We really couldn't generate the kind of interest we wanted for that. And I don't think it was so much skepticism on the part of what we were trying to raise money for as it's just the times. People didn't know how to adequately try to support that beer, especially since we hadn't canned it because it wasn't going to be it was going to be a taproom beer, and it was also going to be distributed in kegs to bars and restaurants. So the skepticism hasn't been there. People seem to want to come out and support if you present it in a way that they can identify with it. And my staff has done a good job of that, as well as with the organizations we work with. So I'm not seeing that as an obstacle.
And I think this notion of finding ways to identify or to enable the customers to identify with what you're trying to do is critical. And I think something that very much reflects the personalized experience and the communal nature of your businesses. Adam, have you had any experiences of that sort?
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo Scott's comments. We haven't really faced a lot of skepticism about our true intentions. We have faced a little bit of opposition to our political opinions. While our brewery tries to be apolitical, is very left-leaning, as I personally am very left-leaning. But we don't really have a lot of skepticism. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that, like myself, members of my staff, my other business partners, you'll find us in the community volunteering for mutual aid organizations, cleaning up in the park, going to anti-racist demonstrations. Like, we're there in the community doing that stuff. So there is no question about where we stand. This isn't like, we didn't just like post a black square and say hashtag Black Lives Matter, after the George Floyd murder, like, we're in this. Like, this is part of who we are as human beings. And I think that just, being out in the community, people recognize that this isn't just some corporate thing like, hey, whatever, here's a quote from somebody, give us money. Do you know what I mean? It's genuine. And
I think that speaks to the future of social responsibility and the ability of companies that are deeply embedded in their own communities to be able to convey that message through various means, as opposed to just a brand itself or just advertising writ large. So we've opened up the queue for questions, which Josh is going to help me manage. And if we have time, Josh, I'm happy to circle back with the speakers on any number of the really interesting observations that they've made. But let's open up for the audience. Let's hear what they have to say and go from there. Josh?
Sure. So Marcus was kind enough to type back an answer on this, but I think if Marcus, if you're able to shed a little more light onto this. This came in from Graham a little while ago, talking about the economic bottleneck that distributors in the industry are having and what kind of challenges that social justice promoting breweries might be facing to get these either in liquor stores, package stores if you're from Massachusetts like me, or in grocery stores, and some of those challenges that you might have to overcome or lack thereof that there may be. And the wonderful mute button's on again.
Well, oh, I'm sorry.
So as of recently, I think that retailers are starting to realize the need for the social impact beer. And so for us, our retailers have been very opening. You look at early on dealing with when we first canned up Black is Beautiful, we've had Texas grocers, HEB reach out to us as far as wanting to partnership with the brand and helping to support and release the beer. But then you also look at the grand thing that we have going on with Walmart and having the ability to have 8 different breweries reach over 500 stores in the course of the month. And if that goes well, then we'll have the ability to reach even more stores, maybe even the entire 4,000. So being said that, I think that a lot of retailers are starting to understand the importance of social responsibility and needing to give back to their communities. And they're looking at some of the larger initiatives, the larger foundations that are giving back and trying to show support for those different things.
Scott, you were going to jump into something as well.
Yeah, you know, we had originally planned to do one batch of Black is Beautiful, and our distributor actually, you know, we don't self-distribute. We have a distributor that sells our beer statewide. They actually came back to us a month and a half after the first batch and asked for they asked us to brew another batch and give them all of it. Because they were seeing an awful lot of desire on the part of the retailers across the state to carry the Black is Beautiful. So it's been wonderful to see that the retailers, the package stores, I'm from Massachusetts too, so I completely get Packy, although Connecticut does call it Packy too. But they've really embraced it as well. And, you know, I thought we'd sell most of the beer out of our tap room, but we are selling most through distribution, because the retailers and our distributor has jumped on board with it and appreciate what we're trying to do, what the whole initiative is about. So,
well, I can tell you, Scott, after listening to you all and enjoying and indulging a little bit of your brew, I can understand why you would want to be, you know, brewing this again, and your distributors would want to get more to you. Marcus, this question goes back to you really quickly. One question that did come in, what's the ride been like for you? I mean, you talk about being a Texas brewery, right? And that's really what you guys were. And now you are this brand that is now, you know, what's the term? Internationally known, I believe is the quote from the famous song here, right? How does it feel to be internationally known for a beer? And what's the ride been like for you and for your family, as you are a family man?
It's very humbling experience, definitely. You look at where our brewery went from early 2020 to currently, and you know, the amount of accolades that we've received because of this initiative has been amazing. And you look at, you know, a lot of these initiatives that have occurred, but it's because of everybody else and their support for the initiative. You know, we were just the kind of the brainchilds behind it, but it's everybody else's support, the other breweries that are producing the beers, the other breweries that are marketing the beer, you know, all of the customers that are going out and purchasing the beer and sharing and, you know, pushing the initiative as a whole. So it's definitely been a wild ride in that sense. Pretty much my life has shifted from being the person that operates the brewery every day to mostly meetings and Zoom calls and conference calls. And that's pretty much what it's been like since June 1st. So, you know, being said that, it's definitely been a huge different experience for me, generally because I'm much of the introvert. And so I've had to become very good at public speaking and, you know, relations to other people very swiftly. You look at some of the things that we've been able to achieve, like Best Brewery in the United States. You know, Black is Beautiful got top 100 products of the year per Gear Patrol. You know, 40 under 40 for wine enthusiasts, and Beeb 75. You know, the Voices of Craft Beer this year, the appointments to the Brewers Association, the appointment to the Texas Brewers Guild, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's definitely been a roller coaster, but I can only be appreciative of all the different things that have come along our ways. I mean, you know, we were dead smack in the pandemic, so being able to survive as a brewery through the pandemic, especially with everything going on, and even the fact that we've been able to donate over $50,000 to our local beneficiary and still survive, you know, that's an amazing thing to be able to do. So like I said, I mean, I can't be anything but humbled and proud in what our brewery has done this year and kind of where we will continue to go into 2021.
Well, that's awesome. And, you know, being a family man and you and I have become friends over this process, and I've seen your posts daily on social media and such. I mean, you're still taking the time to be a dad. I mean, you got two little
Yeah.
ones on your hands, you know, taking them to, you know, wherever you can to spend some quality time while brewing at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're making your 4-year anniversary stout and all those other things that you've been putting out. So kudos to you on that. One of the other things that come through from Martin, he's asking, are there any other initiatives that y'all are planning in the future? And this can go to anybody. I know that we talked briefly in some of the abstract and summary on the event page that, you know, All Together from Other Half was a big thing that started in the industry early on in the pandemic. Black is Beautiful. Are there anything else that people can be aware of or can kind of see coming down the pike, whether that's nationally or internationally or even locally for you?
For us, I can't say too much about it because it's not our initiative, but Jägermeister should be announcing something soon, dealing with saving the stages as far as support for auditoriums and different stage profiles and stuff like that. And we'll be participating in that as well. But for us, our main focus is going to be continue to push the Black is Beautiful initiative and kind of try to expand on that over the course of the next year.
Adam, Scott, anything on your ends, or Laura?
You know, we are, you know, the brewing industry here in Connecticut is pretty close knit, and I imagine that's the way that it is across, you know, the country. But you know, obviously, COVID hit the brewing industry pretty hard last year. So one of our, you know, partner breweries, Aspatuck Brew Labs, they have started this initiative called Undivided. And so it's an IPA. It's, you know, our version of that is set to be released actually this coming Thursday. And so there's a handful of breweries in Connecticut that are all brewing this. We're going to sell it. We're going to give the, you know, proceeds back to the Brewers Guild, which then in turn supports, you know, legislative action and basically just supports us all as breweries. So it's like some way to kind of like keep support this industry that we're all part of. So that's the closest thing that's coming down the pipeline right now. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Scott, Laura, before jumping to another question, anything on your end we can expect, or?
No, I was going to talk about Undivided as well,
Oh.
but Adam beat me to the punch.
Stole your thunder.
It's,
Well, here's
sorry.
another one.
it's not. We're undivided, so it's all our thunder. So
Yeah.
There you go. So
Do you
here's a
have
couple
release
local.
date on yours, Scott? Sorry, I don't mean to hijack.
No, you're
Do you have
good.
a release date, Scott?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We're trying to work it out right now.
Cool.
Hoping to brew it probably early February, so we're talking late February.
Awesome.
So,
I'm looking forward to
you know, hopefully enough of us do it in stages so we spread it out, and it's a beer
Yeah.
that people can find all over the place through the next 8 to 12 months.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to
Likewise.
yours.
A couple of local Connecticut-based brewing questions. This one comes in from Jim talking about, as a beer drinker, what can he do as a beer drinker to find and purchase Black is Beautiful beer? Now, there's a lot of them that are local to liquor stores, depending on distribution and if you have an agreement with those. Obviously, I was mentioning that I was able to get one of Scott's and Laura's from Still Hill. In my local liquor store, I'm out here in Brooklyn, Connecticut, so the Northeast Quiet Corner. Adam, I know I hit you up and you guys did your batch a little bit earlier in the process, but are there others that are still being released? I mean, Scott, you just mentioned that you guys are going to be doing another a re-release at some point, but do you know some of your colleagues that are out there, some of the 16 or so in the Connecticut area that are doing that?
I'm not sure. For the most part, the one place that you can, a high chance of finding it is at the brewery itself. I know that for us, we turn our beer over to the distributor, and I can look at the customer list that the distributor sold it to, but I have no idea if it's still in stock or if they're holding it and they're going to be putting it on the shelf next week or 2 weeks out. But there isn't a brewery in Connecticut that doesn't sell their product right out of their tap room or their facility. So if you really want to get a brewery's version of it, give them a call, see if they still have it in stock, and that's the greatest chance of getting it is directly from the brewery. Other than that, it would be just calling around to your local packy.
Okay, thank you. Now, this also goes to a question that came in similarly to this, a list of breweries that are participating in this. And what I would advise you to do, and this is the website that currently is being operated and managed from Marcus's team down at Weathered Souls, is if you go to blackisbeautiful.beer, you will find all the information you need to know about this initiative, whether that is you are a brewery who wants to join the cause, click that button. If you're a beer drinker and want to support the cause by finding this beer and which breweries are participating. Again, that is blackisbeautiful.beer. And I'm going to ask Kristen if she can type that in, just blackisbeautiful.beer into the chat so you all have it. You'll be able to go down and sort who is actively participating in this, and you'll find out the listing of breweries. You can do that by state. You can type in specific cities. You can type in names you might be looking for, and you can find out who is actively participating in those. So that goes out to another question there. One of the other questions that did come in talking about some of the consistencies or inconsistencies tied to the minimum wage aspect, and some organizations that pay. What the question that's coming in is sub-minimum wage. Do y'all have any experience with this and some of the support that you're doing with the initiatives, or are you unaware of it, aware of it? And if it's unaware, we'll kind of steer clear of this because this seems to be kind of one of those questions that you may need to have a little bit more information on. And I'm just basing it off of the question that's coming in.
I'm wondering if the person who did this question was thinking about our community give back, like whether or not we're supporting that
Correct.
kind of.
Correct.
And I would say, you know, at least for Still Hill, we're supporting nonprofits, so 501c3 that are tax exempt, not employers, you know, per se. It's really organizations with a cause, not large corporations.
Okay, thank you for that. Marcus, this question goes to you. And it's not a bad idea. I'm pretty sure he's still, you know, out there and willing to do spokesmanship. The question is, have you thought about asking for a spokesperson for this issue? And maybe you can get Colin Kaepernick to help you out.
So no, we haven't thought about a spokesperson. As far as the Know Your Rights camp, they were our original beneficiary, and I kind of switched that out to something local when I asked breweries themselves to donate locally. So I thought it would be appropriate if we did the same thing. But as far as a spokesperson, I mean, who knows as time goes how much this may expand, and we're working with local sports organizations and different things of that such that I can't really speak on yet. But you know, as the initiative grows, as Black is Beautiful continues to grow, there's no telling kind of what the possibilities may be and who might involve themselves later down the line.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. Two other questions, and folks, if you have any final questions, we've got a few more minutes, so feel free to type those into the Q&A aspect now. One question here is, if based on, and this is obviously based on a Connecticut geographic area, wondering what sort of split you can see that's noticeable in the rural versus urban craft brewers in terms of the sign-on, Marcus, in terms of what you're experiencing, or if there's even the agricultural industries that supply to you, and they're using Connecticut as the geographic landmark here because we are very town-centric, right? So we are very rural in some areas, very urban in others, and people tend to stay in their respective bubbles in that area. And we, based on the number of towns, we almost have one brewery, if not more, per town now.
I think it's been pretty even, actually. I mean, you look at the top 2 states that participated in Black is Beautiful, California being very urban and Texas being the complete opposite. So being said that, I think it's been pretty much even as far as the breweries and individuals that have supported themselves. I'm sure if you look into the deep details, there probably are a few more urban breweries. But those that aren't typically in the urban area definitely did show up in full force to support the initiative.
Okay, thank you for that. This last one that has come in so far, based on the current state of affairs, do you believe that the specific events that have unfolded over the last 12 months or so really generated or drove the political stance that many breweries are taking now in support of your initiative? Or do you believe that many would have done so even without the mainstream challenges that the social justice world or the underrepresented populations have experienced?
Well, first, I want to say it's not a political issue, it's a humanity issue. So let's clarify that. But secondly, I would say that the last 12 months and kind of the roller coaster that the United States felt with that last year, dealing kind of with the presidency, definitely so. I think a lot of people wanted to come into support of the initiative because of that. I think that it probably would have still had a very good showing despite of some of the recent things that have happened within the last year. But I think some of these events have been very prolific in the sense of causing action amongst Americans. And so that would definitely be the driver for a lot of people in wanting to get involved within the Black and Beautiful initiative, including myself.
Thank you for that. And I think you hit it right on the head. I think a humanity issue is the right way to word that. Laura, this is a question that over the time that we've been prepping, I had for you. You mentioned earlier on that you're trying to change the dynamic and change the culture, surrounding some of the sexism that may exist within the community as well. Have you seen any results as a result of your stance as a brewery in this area specifically towards women and changing some of the naming that takes place with canning and labels and things of that sort? I mean, I know that Still Hill takes a stance against that, but have you seen an impact within your local community as well of the brewers?
I don't know that I can speak locally. I would say, it hasn't hurt us to have clean names. I mean, I'll just share a story. There was last March, there was in San Diego, Reckless Brewery, and they came out with a beer that they called MILF, MILF, and there was backlash, and they suggest that the closure of their brewery was due to that backlash. So, I think the appetite for change, whether it's for racial justice or for eliminating sexism, has, fortunately come. And by not following in those steps, hopefully we're doing the right thing. Our beer is selling without ramification.
That's awesome. And thank you for sharing that. Adam, one other thing that if I can throw your way, one question I have for you is, as a veteran as well, and somebody who takes pride in giving back to the veteran community, I know that when you and I started having this conversation, and I want to make sure that I give kudos to you because you helped me get this off the ground way back when, before we even reached out to Marcus and before we brought Laura and Scott in. And so thank you for helping us make this what it is tonight. What are some of those initiatives that you've taken? And I think that even on a day like today, as momentous of a day, whether you're on the left or the right side of the aisle, it doesn't matter. It's a piece of American history that occurs. What are some of the initiatives that you've taken on from the brewery to help Veterans Affairs as well? I know that that's been something of passion for you that you've shared with me in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one of the big things that we do every year is, we have a veterans toast. Obviously, COVID kind of threw a little bit of a wrench in those gears, but essentially what we do is we invite any, former or current service member to the brewery. We have basically throw like a kick-ass party, and we give a portion of proceeds to Oak Hill, which is one of Connecticut's largest provider of services for disabled veterans. They do a ton of other stuff, but they have a section of their organization that works specifically with disabled veterans. And there's raffles and all sort. We basically enable this organization to raise a bunch of money, and then we donate a bunch of money on top of that. That's probably the biggest thing that we're really known for. We get a couple other businesses in town involved in it too, just to kind of spread it around a little bit and just sort of make it like a whole thing. I mean, sometimes that kind of drives me, because our anniversary is Veterans Day, and this event always happens on Veterans Day. So it's it can be a little bit of a challenge on the home front, but that's okay. But supporting veterans organizations, whether it's this particular event or even smaller things, we've done a couple events to raise money for therapy dogs that go into the homes of veterans who have come home from war. They have PTSD, they have other issues, and this is funds to train and house these dogs with these veterans. So, I mean, that's personally for me, that's a really important, it's just an important cause for me. So that's always kind of in the forefront of our mind. I don't know if that answers your question or.
Entirely
drinking,
does.
So I'm just, yeah.
All good. I didn't realize until now that Scott's beer is 9%. So drink slow, because it might hit you hard. But it's all good. It's all good. This is called pandemic, right? I mean, it's a pandemic. We're good. Yeah. We're having fun.
That is toned down from Marcus's recipe, which is a 10%. So I toned it back a little bit. I will tell you, the next batch is a little bit higher, but that is also, we did stick to Marcus's recipe. We wanted to brew the beer that he designed because it's his initiative. So, but I will say from both batches we've done so far, we did pull out a barrel of each. And when I'm talking barrel, I'm not talking a beer barrel, I'm talking a rye barrel. So we have a whiskey barrel from each batch aging that we hope to bottle up and release again with 100% of those proceeds going to the Juvenile Justice Alliance. So,
Nice.
Yeah,
looking forward to that.
This beer, it's a nice beer. I thoroughly enjoyed it tonight.
Looking forward to that. And
Yep.
Marcus, I know you're a fan of the bourbon barrel, and you and I have texted about that. So Scott, as soon as that's ready, I think Marcus will be on a flight. I'll be on the first. Take me about an hour to get there, but we'll come and tap it with you. We'll have some fun there. But in the essence of time, I want to throw it back to Stefan to take us home with his final thoughts and go from there.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion, and I want to thank Adam, Scott, Laura, and Marcus for their time and insights. Not only has this event made me quite thirsty, it's also been very inspiring because I think it shows the wisdom of the crowd, if you will, and the ways in which entrepreneurs and small business owners across the country are doing innovative things to address their own values and their own goals. But what I think is really fascinating about this event across the state of Connecticut, and of course with Marcus joining us from San Antonio, is that we can learn from each other, even though we are situated, or rather you as owners are situated in your own communities, that in fact you draw inspiration and you find ways to partner with your counterparts in other communities and learn from each other. And I think that process of mutual learning, I think, will be critical as the business world tries to figure out how to tackle or be a part of the solution to some of the great societal challenges of this time. And so thank you for these wonderful examples and insights and very frank thoughts. And I'm certainly looking forward not only to the chance to try your beers, but also continue to learn more about what goes into craft beer.
Well, thank you, Stefan, for that. And before we close tonight, I have one more thing that obviously I wanted to throw this over to Marcus for his final thoughts on how we can continue to help support the Black is Beautiful initiative as it continues. Marcus, I know that we chatted prior to about just a few final words here, and then I'll follow you with a final wrap up and update moving forward.
Yeah. Well, first I want to thank Adam, Scott, and Laura for your guys' participation in Black is Beautiful. I mean, it definitely means a lot to see your guys' passion behind it. But as far as how the consumers can support is continually supporting your local breweries that are brewing the beer. Go purchase the beer, share with friends, check out the website, tag your local breweries that have not involved themselves. The thing about Black is Beautiful is, it's not a one or done. It's something that's going to continue beyond for the foreseeable future. So it definitely isn't a race to get involved. I know, a lot of breweries were limited pre-production, dealing with COVID and dealing with the pandemic. But, this is an initiative where you can get in where you fit in. So continue to tag your breweries that haven't been involved locally, continue to support those breweries that are brewing the beer, make sure you drink it. And that's the best way possible to support the Black is Beautiful initiative. Come February, make sure you check out your local Walmarts. I want to say it should be hitting Connecticut, but check your local Walmarts in February for Black is Beautiful purchase, support those local breweries that are participating in that program. And yeah, let's continue to ride this out.
Well, you appreciate it, Marcus. And huge thanks to Adam, Scott, Laura. Huge kudos to Stefan for moderating our discussion tonight. And Marcus, I'll share the small story of when I reached out to you. The thing that resonates in my head, folks, is that if you want to know the power of the UConn brand, all you have to do is look right here today, and the fact that Marcus has joined us. Marcus and I chatted on the phone briefly the first time about this event, and he's like, well, of course I'm going to do it. I can't say no to UConn. So that in and of itself should teach you some pride that you should have in your institution and the brand that UConn Nation brings across the country with it. So Marcus, we can't thank you enough with the celebrity status that you now have and the stature that you keep bringing to the table. You're doing huge things for the beer industry, and UConn Nation is grateful for it because we've been able to experience it and get inside knowledge into what you're doing. So huge thanks for taking some time, especially when you have those two little ones at home and a beautiful family. We appreciate you spending an hour and change with us today to talk about this and what you're doing for the global side of it as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No problem. Anytime.
So if in my final thing, as Laura knows, I've always got to toast you guys. So if y'all can raise your drinks, whatever you're drinking with me tonight, and we can all cheers to UConn Nation, cheers to the vaccine that's coming out. And hopefully we all can be together in a tap room shortly with another one of our 1881 series or at your local brewery next time around. So huge thanks to you all, to Stefan, to Laura, to Adam, to Scott, and huge thanks to Marcus for joining us. To my colleague Kristen handling on the back end. We look forward to seeing you next time. The next one up, by the way, folks, we should launch shortly for you. But coming up in March, we have our Uncorked series, which is teaming up with Paradise Hills Vineyard right down the street in Wallingford. So we'll get that information out to you. But the next 1881 What's on Tap will be Why So Sour? The Science of the Sour Beer. So that's coming soon. So you'll see that information coming out in the next couple of weeks. But cheers to UConn Nation and cheers to Marcus and the Black is Beautiful.
Cheers.
So thanks very much, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.